Israel says it's accepted U.S. President Joe Biden's Gaza ceasefire proposal, but believes a framework deal is in need of much more work. This was disclosed by Chief Foreign Policy Advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Ophir Falk. It comes as Mr. Biden unveiled a three-part ceasefire plan last week. The first phase would see an increase in humanitarian aid as well as the return of some hostages held by Hamas. The second phase would see the cessation of hostilities permanently in exchange for all remaining living hostages held by Hamas, while the third phase will be the start of a major reconstruction plan in Gaza and the return of the remains of dead hostages to their families. Meanwhile, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong urged all parties to agree to terms of the ceasefire proposal by the US. The attack on Rafah has drawn more international attention, with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, saying that all 36 of its shelters in the Rafah area are empty after residents were forced to flee. Another 1.7 million people are estimated to be displaced in Khan Yunis and in parts of central Gaza. But the US is confident Israel is open to a ceasefire deal on Gaza.
Don't want to see a major ground operation. We haven't seen that.
The U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told ABC News on Sunday the U.S. has every expectation that Israel would say yes to the proposed ceasefire deal if Hamas accepts. He says the U.S. is waiting for an official response from Hamas and that the U.S. hopes that both sides agree to start the first phase of the plan as soon as possible. During the initial 6-week pause in the fighting, according to Kirby, the two sides will sit down and try to negotiate what phase 2 could look like and when that could begin. US President Joe Biden had said last week the second phase of the plan would see all remaining living hostages returned, including male soldiers. The ceasefire will then become the cessation of hostilities permanently. On Saturday, however, two far-right Israeli ministers threatened to quit and collapse the country's governing coalition if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to the deal. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said they were opposed to striking any deal before Hamas was destroyed. Netanyahu, on his part, has insisted there will be no ceasefire until Hamas's military and governing capabilities are destroyed and all hostages are released. Well, thousands of people took to the streets in New York City on Sunday to demand the release of Hamas hostages. The parade, dubbed Israel Day on 5th, saw participants marching both the Israeli and American flags. They also chanted slogans and held banners reading, "Bring them home now." According to organizers, around 60,000 people joined the parade. The New York Police Department were also heavily deployed to monitor the parade. Organized by Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, the 59th edition of the parade was held on the 5th Avenue in Manhattan. Unlike previous editions, which were filled with a lively atmosphere, this year's Celebrate Israel event focused on civilian suffering and those hostages remaining in Hamas captivity. Over in the Netherlands, hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters rallied to demand the Dutch government cut ties with Israel. They waved Palestinian flags and carried huge banners calling for an end to genocide. According to some protesters, so many red lines are being crossed already. Others call for sanctions on Israel, saying the war is unacceptable.
Our government should stop supporting another government killing so many innocent people. So they have to make a statement and they don't do it at this time. So I think they need to choose for sanctions or other ways to make clear that this is unacceptable.
You cannot go on supporting genocide. This is the first genocide in my life. That was announced that is reported on television and that is getting money from all European Union. This treaty with Israel, so-called based on shared values. In my value, genocide is not. So EU cut all ties with the genocider.
The Dutch government, as well as Joe Biden, said there's a red line in Rafah. If Israel would cross that, then there may be sanctions. Now, Israel has crossed that. Israel, even before Rafah, there are tens of thousands of people dead. The occupation continues. People on the West Bank are also terrorized. There are so many red lines being crossed already. They spoke about this particular red line in Rafah still being crossed and still no sanctions. Israel is an ally of the West. It has an important role in a very oil-rich region. We say there need to be sanctions now, the ties need to be cut. All the humanitarian aid needs to go to Gaza right now. Borders need to go open for refugees to go in and out.
UN humanitarians have warned that far too little aid is reaching people in Gaza to the extent that children are now starving. Alerts comes from the World Health Organization after finding that more than 4 in 5 children did not eat for a whole day at least once in the 3 days ahead of a food insecurity survey.
The 95% of children aged 6 to 23 months, so that's basically the under 5s, are eating 2 or less different food groups per day. But the thing that I found most shocking was 85% of children did not eat for a whole day, at least once in the 3 days before the survey. This was a snapshot survey. They went around and asked, and these are children under 5 who are not getting food all day, and that was in the last 3 days before the survey. So you ask, are the supplies getting through? No. Children are starving.
We continue to insist that Israeli authorities' obligation under the law to facilitate delivery of aid does not stop at the border. It does not stop when you drop off just a few meters across the border and then drive away and then leave it to humanitarian to drive through active combat zones, which they cannot do, to pick it up. So to answer your question, no, the aid that is getting in is not getting to the people. I would say they are certainly not getting the amount that they desperately need to prevent a famine, to prevent all kind of horrors that we see. It's very, very little that is going around at the moment. As you know, it's not a UN operation per se, but of course we have also said that any and all ways of getting aid in is welcome. So when that modality is currently not working, that's of course bad news. That goes without saying. It was never, I think, intended, and it was never realistic to be a major or the major pipeline of aid in. It would have been an addition, and we keep emphasizing that the only way to get aid in at scale and at speed is through land crossings, and that's where we have these problems, and we need more of these land crossings, and we need them open, and we need them safe for us to pick up the aid when it's dropped off.
And it appears nationals from other countries except Israelis will be able to enter the Maldives because of the ongoing war in Gaza. The Indian Ocean island nation is known for being a luxury travel destination, and President Mohammed Muizzu had previously condemned Israel over its recent strike on Rafah in southern Gaza, which led to the deaths of at least 45 people. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in response to the action, advised Israeli citizens to avoid traveling to the country and for any Israeli citizens currently in the Maldives to leave, since if they fall into distress for any reason, it will be difficult for us to help.